Today I wanted to talk about integrity in your prayer life. Our nation is setting today with a tremendous amount of people locked in prayer for the heart of the nation, in prayer for different aspects of the election and different overcoming different things in cities and all these things. And I wanted to talk about integrity in your prayer life and what does it really mean. The best example is Psalms 26. In Psalms 26, David came to the Lord and opened up the prayer. In 26, 1 through 3, it says, "Judge me, O Lord, for I have walked in my integrity. I have trusted also in the Lord, therefore shall I not slide. Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. Try my reins and my heart, for thy loving kindness is before my eyes, and I have walked in thy truth." So David starts out talking about the fact that he was in a place of integrity, and before he even went any further in this psalm, he asked God to judge him, and he asked God to take a look at his life and see that he had walked in integrity and he was walking in truth. And for us to have an effective prayer life, especially in this time and season of the earth, we have got to have an integrity in our own personal lives before we start confronting things of evil and demonic forces that are opposing. When we have that kind of confidence, and David says it in Psalms 26 here, he says that he would not be a partaker of the judgment that was coming upon those that were setting as evil. And the psalm basically kind of goes like this in an outline. He invites God for a divine examination of his life. And then he asks God for a divine examination of his actions. Then he goes into confession of where he feels he stands before God in his innocence, and then in his integrity in the midst of the negativity surrounding his life and in the people surrounding him in the nation. Then he talks about his integrity while he is positioned positively regarding his life with God. Then he goes into the rest of the psalm. And so I wonder how many times do we actually come and we say, prepare your heart to pray or prepare your heart for this meeting, but do we actually have that kind of boldness and confidence that we could come to God and say, examine me, judge me, look at my own personal life, look at what I have done with my life and where I'm going, and see where I'm at. And he was very bold about it to say, judge me, God. Take a look at my life and see what my life is doing. So a little further in the psalm, in Psalm 26 here, he talks about the fact of he's focused on God's loving kindness. He's focused on God's faithfulness, his goodness. He's not focused on what the enemy is doing. He's focused on who God is and how God would react in circumstance and situation. In Psalms 26, 4 through 8, he says, I have not sat with vain persons, neither will I go in with dissemblers. I have hated the congregation of evildoers. I will not sit with the wicked. I will wash my hands in innocence. I will compass thy altar. And he starts talking about publishing with the voice of thanksgiving. He's starting to identify. He says, I'm identifying not with the evil that I'm praying into. I'm identifying with the worshipers and the goodness of God. I think many times we get focused on the evil and not focused on the answer, or not staying focused on God himself. And so he said, I've not been with those that are vain, meaning empty or having nothingness. And I'm isolating myself from the dissembler, which means those that conceal and hide and try to keep things secret. But he says, I'm basically setting in the place of innocence. And he says, I've washed my hands. And he openly declares that he washed his hands. And public hand washing was a declaration of your innocence. You can see that in Deuteronomy 21:6. And innocence means he was free from guilt or free from punishment. In other words, we can't be praying about things that we're partakers of. And I think most of us know that. But I think sometimes we partake of it and even empower evil by us focusing on evil more than focusing on answers. He talks about the fact in verse 7 to publish, to hear, perceive, and understand, and listen to obey. And on down in Psalms 26:9, he says, gather not my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloody men, in whose hand is mischief, and their right hand is full of bribes. But as for me, I will walk in my integrity, redeem me, and be merciful unto me. My foot standeth in an even place in the congregation where I bless thee. So basically he's saying, I understand there's evil around me, but my primary focus is not on the evil. My primary focus is to make sure that my heart is pure, that my life is right, that my hands are clean. But he starts to bring it out, their hand is full of bribes. And that's right now what we see in our nation as a whole. We're seeing a paid off election, we're seeing deception, we're seeing all of these things. He says, whose hands is mischief. So he's approaching, not coming out talking and confronting the evil. He's first examining his own heart. And then from the place of integrity, he has then confidence to confront the evil. Now, how he confronts the evil is based on his own uprightness or his own standard that he has created of integrity in his own life. So he's coming and saying, I have a legal right to now judge what I see based on the fact of the integrity that I have formed in my own life. And because of that integrity, I now have confidence to start addressing these things. And not only can I compare them to what God's standard is, but I can compare these men's lives and their ways to my own integrity of where I'm standing in my own life, of what God has developed in my life, because now there is a pathway that they do not have to be like that. They can be different than that. So on down, he talks about basically in verses Psalm 26, 9 through 12, that there's a reward for his integrity. And he said, spare me from the fate of those sinners. In other words, it's almost like, is there 10 righteous? Is there 5 righteous? God can hold back an entire nation's judgment or the outcome of something in a nation for the fact of one person standing there who prayed in a place of integrity. And he says, if swift judgment is coming upon those wicked, he said, let me not be a partaker of that judgment. I feel like right now with all the election stuff that's going on, we have got to make sure that our hearts are right, that we are praying out of the place of integrity, and that God has first done a work in our own lives. And then from that place, we can look into these things of the evil, the men taking bribes, wickedness. I really feel that this psalm of Psalm 26 is a psalm for right now in the nation. I was dialoguing with someone this morning about also the fact that we need to be praying for Supreme Court Justice Roberts because there's something going on there that's just not how he would normally be voting. And so what's hidden in all that? But can I pray from a place of absolute integrity in my own life? And can I pray from a place of confidence? I think a lot of people lack the confidence in their prayer life because they don't feel they're in right standing. And when you get to that place, like he opened Psalm 26 up with, judge me, O God, search me, look at my integrity. That's a pretty bold statement to make. Look at how I've conducted my life. Look and see if there's any hidden thing in me. And if God points something out, there's a conviction. And when there's conviction, there's always grace to change those things. That's the thing of getting your heart right. Now, when you come into God, you have confidence and boldness that you know that God will perform what he has said he would do concerning these things. And he would do it even for the sake of one or two that are walking in a place of integrity. So I love the verse. I love this section of scripture in Psalms 26. And David was very bold because he basically said, God, I'm inviting you to look in my life, to examine me. And I think this is what we end up doing. We allow God to examine us in our heart, but we don't allow God to examine us in our actions so much. And so it's both the heart and it's the outcome of the actions. And when we do that, then this confidence will come. And as I look at this in its entirety, just trying to kind of wrap up here because I want to keep these short, I really feel that that integrity and focusing on the Lord instead of focusing on the evil is the key in this hour to seeing us really pray effectively, pray imprecatory prayers, because that's where these things lead us into the next level of praying, of the prayers of imprecation, where we take on the enemies of God as our enemies, and our enemies are God's enemies, and that through imprecatory prayer, that we can remove those enemies. We can ask God to remove them. Even this week, in our prayer time on Wednesday night, which was very legislative prayer, as ecclesia prayer, I was praying against the Federal Reserve and the members of the Federal Reserve, that God would remove them out of their course or out of their office, because they're funding a lot of what we're seeing in this hour. So there's hidden things, but we can't go into those depths and levels of prayer if there isn't the integrity already been built in our heart, and the character for us to sustain those prayers when we walk out of a prayer room, because we have to sustain those things in faith. And if our integrity is not settled, and we just are doing it for the action of prayer and not for the lifestyle, then when we come out, our faith is not holding those things anymore. We could lose our confidence in what we prayed. And sometimes we get caught up in the emotion of a prayer room when we need to be caught up in the what did David say here? He said, I was caught up in your loving kindness. For thy loving kindness is before my eyes, and I have walked in thy truth. Today I pray that you would be able to get caught up into that kind of understanding, that his eyes were always upon the loving kindness of God, and his walk was always based in truth every single day. So that's just a quick thing today. I was just looking at some notes, kind of getting ready for this travel that I'm about to do, and kind of saying, what do I need to say to these different groups of people? Came across this, and I just felt quickened by the Lord to share it here today on Facebook. So God bless you. Pass this around. By the way, the base is going to be doing another revealing conference in January. We're going to give those dates pretty quickly. We had almost a full house the last time. People came from 9 different states. We actually believe a movement is starting. We felt that in the meeting. Many voiced that independently. Also in the same thing, we have created a base app. You can go to the base Des Moines, Iowa, the base Des Moines, Iowa. You can download the app. Has our calendar, has teaching, YouTube channel. Across the very bottom of it, it has all the resource buttons. And we're getting ready to load podcasts in the next 2 to 3 weeks. There'll be about 120 to 150 teaching podcasts loaded into the base app. You'll also get updates. It has online giving. It has access to the YouTube channel where I have these kinds of videos, to the live Facebook feeds. It'll have to my blog. It's basically a resource tool for people that are following and tracking with us. And so I just really encourage you to download it. We are doing almost nothing by handing out flyers and the old way of doing things. Everything we're doing, we're stepping our game up into a lot more technology. So just God bless you today. Thank you for listening. Pass this around to people if you feel that would encourage them, and walk in integrity and keep your eyes on the loving kindness of God. God bless. Thank you.